We are the Gambling Databases Research Team, a group dedicated to delivering in-depth analyses of the global iGaming landscape. In each country-specific report, we explore key aspects such as local regulations, taxation, player experience, operator conditions, and emerging trends. Our goal is to provide a clear, data-driven understanding of how the gambling industry functions within each market and what makes it unique. And today, we are heading into the jungle. Literally, we're stripping back the layers on the gambling market in Laos.
It is definitely one of the more unique and, frankly, colorful markets we've analyzed in recent memory.
That is a very polite way of putting it. Usually when we sit down to discuss these Asian markets, we're talking about massive population centers, huge technology adoption.
Just standard metrics, yeah.
Exactly. But Laos feels different right from page 1 of the report. It just presents this massive contradiction that I can't quite wrap my head around.
It really does. It defies the standard logic we see in, regulated markets in Europe or North America.
I mean, get this, and this is for everyone listening who thinks they know how regulation works. Laos is a country where gambling is strictly 100% illegal for its own citizens.
And not just a fine.
No, not a slap on the wrist. I'm talking about prison time under the penal law. And yet, this same country is generating over $450 million annually in casino revenue.
It's a staggering number. Staggering for a country with that kind of prohibition. It's nearly $500 million in a place where the average person isn't allowed to even touch a slot machine.
So that's the mystery we're trying to solve today. If the locals are facing jail time for placing a bet, who on earth is spending $500 million there?
And, more importantly, is that an opportunity?
Right. Is it an opportunity for our listeners, or is it just a mirage?
That's the core paradox. And our mission for this analysis was to figure out if this is a hidden gold mine for operators who are willing to brave the frontier, or if it's a trap.
A trap. That sounds a little ominous.
Well, as we went through the data, we framed the analysis around two concepts. Is Laos a hidden gem? Or is it what we've started calling a landlord market? A system designed to extract maximum rent from operators until they go bust.
Landlord market. I like that. It sounds expensive.
It's incredibly expensive. We're going to map out the special economic zones, the SEZs, which are really the engine room of this whole thing. We'll look at this Piogo-style offshore model they're copying.
The Philippines, right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we absolutely have to talk about the taxes.
The flat tax. I saw that in the spreadsheet, and I couldn't believe it.
The flat tax. When I first saw those numbers in the dataset, I honestly thought it was a typo. I thought someone had added an extra zero by mistake.
I did too. I actually emailed the research team to ask if they missed a decimal point. We will definitely unpack that because it is wild. And of course, the critical risks, especially around the Golden Triangle.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation.
But let's start with the basics. The law. You mentioned it's illegal for locals. How strict is that really? Is it one of those things where it's illegal on paper, but everyone does it?
No, this is a genuine dual system. It is very, very rigid. On one side, you have the local population. What is it, about 7.5 million people?
About that, yeah.
For them, the door is locked, bolted, and welded shut. The Lao penal law is explicit. No casinos, no online betting, nothing except the state lottery.
And they actually enforce it.
Oh, yeah, they do. Authorities monitor internet cafes. They block unauthorized sites. They arrest people. It is a zero-tolerance policy. The government is under a lot of social pressure to keep the vice away from its own people.
So if you're looking at the domestic market value in your spreadsheet.
Put a big zero there. You cannot monetize the people living in Laos, period.
Okay, so if I'm an operator, I look at the map of Laos, and I have to pretend the 7.5 million people living there don't even exist.
They are invisible to your business model?
Yeah.
Exactly. But then you have the second system, the foreigner market.
Right.
The government has essentially decided to treat gambling as an export product. Think of it like manufacturing cars for export. But instead of cars, it's baccarat tables. It's legal, but it is geographically quarantined.
And that's where the SEZs come in.
That's where the SEZs come in. You can only operate within these specific areas called special economic zones.
I've always found the concept of SEZs fascinating. It's like a country within a country with its own set of rules.
That is exactly what they are. And in Laos, they aren't just random spots on a map. They are strategically placed right on the borders. You have the Golden Triangle SEZ in Bokeo Province, which sits right at the intersection of Laos, Thailand, and Myanmar.
And Savan Vegas.
Then you have Savan Vegas in Savannakhet, right next to the Thai border. The geography tells the whole story. It's not about being near a Laotian city. It's about being near a neighbor city.
It's a pressure release valve for the neighbors.
Precisely. Laos is monetizing its neighbors' restrictions. And recently, they've tried to modernize this. They realized that physical casinos are great, but, online is the future. So they've adopted a framework that's very similar to the POJO system.
POJO, the Philippine offshore gaming operators.
Right. The concept is simple. We'll give you a license to run an online gambling site from our soil. You can put your servers here, your staff here, but, and this is the golden rule, you are strictly forbidden from accepting a single bet from inside Laos.
So you have to beam that signal out.
You have to beam it out to the rest of the world. And that brings us to the regulator. The Ministry of Planning and Investment, the MPI, handles all this. They do background checks, technical audits. On paper, it looks like a formal licensing regime.
It looks like one, but does it function like one?
Yeah.
Because this is where I want to get into that landlord market idea you mentioned.
Yeah.
Let's say I'm an operator. I see this setup. I think, great, I'll get a license in Laos, low cost of living, easy access to Asian markets. What stops me?
The barrier to entry. And it isn't a regulatory barrier, not really. It's a financial wall.
Okay, walk us through the money. Make it real for us.
Okay. In almost every major gambling jurisdiction, think the UK, Malta, even some US states, you pay tax on GGR, gross gaming revenue.
Right, a percentage of your profit.
Basically, if you make money, the government makes money. If you have a bad month, you pay less. It's partnership,
You share the risk and the reward.
Laos doesn't do that. For these major operations, they use a flat rate tax system.
Meaning you pay a set fee regardless of performance.
Regardless of performance. And the numbers are, they're just eye-watering. We are talking about a flat tax that ranges roughly from $3 million to $8 million annually.
Wait, let me just pause there. $3 to $8 million just to exist.
Just to keep the lights on, that is the price of admission.
So if I'm a startup and I launch my site and I have a slow first year, say I only bring in $1 million in revenue, which is a decent start for a new company, I still owe the government $3 million.
You do. You are technically bankrupt before you've even optimized your marketing funnel. That is why we call it a regressive tax. It brutally punishes the small players.
But flip that around. If I'm a massive conglomerate and I make $100 million,
then an $8 million tax is basically an 8% tax rate. That is an incredible deal. That's lower than almost anywhere else in the world.
So the system is rigged. It's explicitly designed for the giants.
It is a rich man's game.
Yeah.
And we haven't even touched the startup costs. To even get in the door to apply, you're looking at an initial investment of $500,000 over $1 million just for setup fees and capital requirements.
And I assume, given this SEZ structure, this isn't a virtual license.
Right.
I can't just rent a P.O. box and run the business from my apartment in London.
Oh, not at all. That's the other side of the landlord concept. There is a mandatory physical presence rule. You must have a registered office inside one of these specific SEZs. You have to build physical infrastructure.
And hire locals.
You have to meet quotas for employing Laotian nationals, yes.
So you are forced to rent land, build an office, and hire staff in a remote economic zone just to run a website that bans the people living right outside your door.
Put that way, it sounds like a logistical nightmare, doesn't it?
It sounds like you're building a factory, not a tech company. It feels very old school.
And that is exactly why the Operator E score in our report, which we'll get to later, took such a massive hit. It filters out everyone except the whales. It's a velvet rope that costs $5 million to cross.
Speaking of whales, let's talk about the players. We established the locals route. Who is actually generating that $450 million?
It's almost entirely foreign tourists and what the industry calls junket traffic. The primary source markets are China, Thailand, and Vietnam.
Which makes sense given the borders we talked about.
Right. But here's the metric that really jumped out at me, because the clientele is largely VIPs, people traveling specifically to gamble. The average revenue per user, the ARPU, is estimated at around $2,300 US
$2,300
per user.
That's massive. I mean, in a typical European market, you might see an ARPU of what, a few $100s? Maybe.
So we're lucky, maybe $300 or $400 for a solid VIP segment. But $2,300 reflects a market that is all whales. These aren't casual pinchers betting $5 on a soccer match. These are serious gamblers.
It changes the economics completely, doesn't
Yeah.
it? You don't need 1 million users. You just need 1,000 of the right users.
Exactly. But finding them is the hard part, especially since the market is so consolidated.
How consolidated are we talking?
Well, just look at the Golden Triangle SEZ, the King's Romans Group. They're the developers and main operators there. They hold an estimated 80% market share in that zone.
80%. That's not a market. That's a monopoly.
Effectively, yes. They built the infrastructure, they have the relationships. If you go there, you are playing in their backyard. It's almost like a company town.
And despite all this, the tax, the monopoly, the report says the market is still growing.
It is. We're projecting a CAGR of 6 to 8%. As tourism rebounds and they issue more of these offshore licenses, the revenue is climbing. But again, that growth is likely going to the big players who are already there.
Right. It's growth for the landlord, not the tenants.
Exactly.
Okay, let's pivot to the practical side. We're a tech-focused team, so I have to ask, does the internet actually work?
Yeah.
If you're going to run a live dealer studio from the jungle, can you actually stream it?
It's getting there, but it's a mixed bag. Internet penetration nationwide is only about 64%.
Which is low.
It is. However, inside the SEZs, it's a different story. They are rolling out 5G, they have fiber optics, the infrastructure is there.
So the SEZ is like an oasis of connectivity.
Pretty much. But you have to be careful about latency if you're targeting players in, say, Korea or Japan. You really need to test those routes.
And on the end user side, mobile.
Oh, completely mobile first.
Yeah.
And Android dominates. About 85% market share. If you are building for this region, don't even bother optimizing for iPhone first.
Okay, but here's the bottleneck I'm worried about. Money. The actual movement of funds. How do you get money in and out?
That is the major friction point. The local banks, they're very conservative. They generally do not process gambling transactions and definitely not for international transfers.
So if a player in Thailand wins $50,000, how do you pay them?
You can't just wire it from a Laotian bank. It would get flagged immediately. Operators have to get creative. They rely heavily on offshore payment processors, mobile wallets where they can, and increasingly cryptocurrency.
Crypto has to be huge there.
It's essential. For an offshore market where traditional banking is hostile, crypto is becoming the standard. If you don't have a robust crypto payment gateway USDT, Bitcoin, you probably can't operate effectively.
Okay, so let's recap. High-cost market, monopoly dominated, requires a physical office in a remote zone, and you have to bank in crypto.
That is a fair summary.
But now, we have to talk about the danger.
Hmm.
Because the critical risks section of the report had some red flags that were practically glowing.
This is the stay away warning part of the conversation. If you're listening and thinking, hey, maybe I can make the math work, you need to listen very, very closely here.
Let's start with the legal risk. We mentioned jail for locals. Does that apply to foreign operators?
It applies to anyone who breaks the containment rules. In a gray market, if you accidentally accept a local player, you might get a fine. In Laos, targeting the local population is a criminal offense. You risk imprisonment.
And I imagine the definition of targeting can be fluid.
Exactly. But honestly, the bigger risk isn't the Laotian police. It's the neighbors, the geopolitical risk.
China.
Specifically China. Laos relies heavily on China. They have extradition treaties.
Extradition treaties. That's a scary phrase. What does that mean in practice?
It means that if you are in Laos, operating a site that targets Chinese nationals, which is illegal under Chinese law, Beijing, can pressure the Lao government to shut you down.
And hand you over.
And hand you over. We've seen it happen. We've seen raids, deportations, joint task forces. Laos is not a sovereign safe haven if you are breaking the laws of its powerful neighbors.
Wow. So being across the border is not a shield.
Not at all. And then there's the reputation of the places themselves. The Golden Triangle, that name conjures up some images.
Right.
And unfortunately, some of that reputation lingers. The Golden Triangle SEZ has been plagued by reports of human trafficking, scam centers, fraud factories.
And that impacts a legitimate gambling business.
It impacts everything. If your company is registered in the Golden Triangle SEZ, good luck opening a Tier 1 bank account in London. Compliance departments see Bokyo province and immediately flag it as high risk.
You become guilty by association.
You do. You might be running the cleanest poker site in the world, but your address puts you in the same bucket as the scam centers. That's a massive hidden cost.
When you stack it all up, the flat tax, the office requirement, no locals, and the risk of extradition, it sounds daunting.
Daunting is very polite. It's a fortress. It is designed to keep people out.
So let's get to the verdict. We've crunched the numbers. How did Laos score in our database?
Okay, let's start with the operator ease score. We gave Laos a 4.2 out of 10.
That feels almost generous.
It's low. It reflects the high fixed costs. The only reason it's not lower is that if you have the money, the actual licensing process is relatively streamlined. But for most, yeah, it's a 4.2.
And the player access score?
A 2.0 out of 10.
Ouch. That's rock bottom.
It has to be. Since it's illegal for residents, the score reflects that black market reality. There is no legal player access for the population.
Which brings us to the big one, overall market attractiveness.
We rated it a 3.1 out of 10.
That is one of the lowest scores we've given this year. So let's be real. Who is this market actually for?
The verdict is clear. Laos is only viable for massive land-based casino groups. The big players in Macau or Cambodia who want an online extension for their existing VIPs.
It's a private club.
Exactly. If you have $100 million in the bank and you want to bring your high rollers to a private enclave, Laos works. For everyone else, a pure-play online startup, a European operator, anyone with less than $5 million in capital, it is a definite avoid.
So to summarize, Laos is a fascinating high-stakes fortress. It bans gambling for its own people, but has built a $500 million industry exporting it. It demands massive flat taxes and carries huge geopolitical risks.
It's a high-risk, high-reward environment, but the reward is only accessible if you have incredibly deep pockets.
It's certainly not for the faint of heart.
You know, it leaves us with a provocative thought. We're seeing regulations tighten all over the world. Europe is clamping down.
Right, compliance is getting harder everywhere.
So will we see more countries adopting this Laos model? Will we see more small nations deciding to strictly prohibit gambling for their own citizens while building these massive export hubs to sell the vice to their neighbors?
It's a cynical model, isn't it?
It is cynical, but economically, for the state, it's very attractive. You get the tax revenue without the social cost. You're outsourcing the addiction while keeping the revenue.
That is a fascinating, if slightly dark, thought. Outsourcing the addiction. It's definitely something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. As borders blur online, these export hubs might become the new regulatory battleground.
Well, that brings us to the end of our analysis of Laos. A complex market, but hopefully we've made the math a little clearer for you. For the full text of this and other country reports, visit our website at gamblingdatabases.com.
Thanks for listening.
See you on the next report.